Om Gyanam Timirandhasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we made it to um, so we I think continued we completed the Sambandha. So in chapter 2, we had divided it into three parts: Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojana. We had completed Sambandha, which is the first one, and then now we were starting Avideya. Yes. So we now understand from Krishna the relationship between us and our bodies, between us and Krishna, the relationship between the soul and the world, and the soul and Krishna. And now we will, Krishna is going to speak about how to develop that knowledge, how to develop that relationship with Krishna. As you may know, in the text, it was mentioned how there's three different stages of knowledge. One is, theoretical knowledge. Another is knowledge that is developed through practice and realization. and the third is perfected knowledge, right? So until now, we have the theoretical knowledge. Now, Krishna will tell us how do we actually develop this spiritual knowledge? How do we develop it further so that we can actually realize it? I gave you the example last time of the Upanishads, where there are two persons in the Upanishads who are talking, who are discussing. There's a spiritual master and the disciple will go to the guru and say, please give me spiritual knowledge. And the guru will say, go back and meditate for another 1,000 years and then come back. Do austerities, do tapasya for 1,000 years, then come back and I'll answer your question. So why is that? Because this is abhideya. This is the process for developing that knowledge, internalizing it, realizing it. And Krishna is now going to tell us what is the action or the activity that needs to accompany the knowledge to further develop one's relationship with Krishna. His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj, he has a nice statement that he says, philosophy is the direction, service is the connection. Right? Philosophy is the direction, service is the connection. So through one's abhideya, one actually connects using that philosophy. Arjuna argued that war would bring him unhappiness. Here Krishna shows that abandoning the war would bring unhappiness by creating an infamous stain in Arjuna's Kshatriya reputation. Fighting in the war, however, could bring only happiness. Win or lose, if Arjuna loses, he goes to the heavenly planets. If he wins, he enjoys the earthly kingdom. Oops, did I accidentally? So sometimes in our own Krishna consciousness, we may have the thought, the feeling that by giving up my service, I will become happy, right? We sometimes feel that, oh, right now there's so much opposition to my service, or there's so much difficulty in my service. And by giving up my service, everyone will be pacified and I can, be happy. But Krishna here is telling us, Krishna is telling Arjuna, and Srila Prabhupada told us that by giving up our service, we are never happy. And then we're more unhappy because those who will criticize, they will continue criticizing, but in the end, we are also losing our service. So this was Arjuna's case, that he felt that, he would get some sort of freedom, but those who were inimical would continue being inimical. Nothing would change, but he would simply become infamous for having run away from the war. He would have lost his service. So whatever it is, we should continue with our service. Don't give up our duty. Don't give up our service to Krishna. Once we give that up, then we lose that connection, right? That service is our connection. Of course, by the guidance of the spiritual master and senior devotees, we can change our service, but it should not be out of weakness or out of lack of determination or lack of desire to serve Krishna. Because then there's a reaction to that. Krishna is, this is our connection with Krishna. If we lose that, then Krishna becomes unhappy. Krishna concludes by stating that Arjuna should not make his decisions based upon material happiness. Rather, he should fight for the sake of pleasing Krishna. So, if we're feeling unhappy, it's not because of the actual unhappiness that we are thinking it is, but we are feeling unhappy because we're not pleasing Krishna. So we become happy by pleasing Krishna more. Don't calculate, Krishna's telling Arjuna, in terms of material profit and loss. well, if I do this, then my reputation will come back. If I do this, then maybe my material opulence will increase. But act to please Krishna. That is his request to Arjuna, that we should act to please Krishna. The glories of Buddhi Yoga. Two significant glories of Buddhi Yoga are described. So in this chapter also Buddhi Yoga is established. Buddhi, this is a very important term in chapter 2, as you all may know. Buddhi means intelligence. And Krishna is telling him, do the yoga of intelligence. Because he tells Arjuna in the beginning this also. Ashochan anmashochasta pragyavalang shubhashasi. That, you're while speaking learned words, you're mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So he's saying you're not being wise. Gatasuna gatasuna nanu shochanti pandita. You are not a pandita. You are being an apandita. And so he's telling Arjuna that you should use your intelligence. And using our intelligence in Krishna's service is called the yoga of intelligence, Buddhi Yoga. Its benefits are eternal, and it frees one from indecisiveness. Its benefits are eternal, and it frees one from indecisiveness. The faults of acting without buddhi. Those who act without knowledge become enamored by opulence and enjoyment, and follow only the portions of the Vedas that grant material boons. Such persons never develop steadiness or determination. Therefore, one should rise above the materialistic portion of the Vedas by knowing that their purpose is to serve Krishna. So one has to use one's intelligence in Krishna's service. When one tries to do that, that's called Buddhi Yoga. However, the key thing here that we need to remind ourselves is that this Buddhi must become spiritual intelligence. Right? It's Buddhi Yoga when we're engaging our intelligence in Krishna's service, but also the intelligence becomes spiritual intelligence. And how does it become spiritual intelligence? When the intelligence is guided by the scriptures and by the spiritual master and the sadhus. This is why we take their guidance, because our consciousness right now may be materially ingrained, but when we connect with Krishna, then it becomes spiritualized. It becomes spiritually directed. When we connect with the devotees of Krishna who are more advanced than us, then their spiritual knowledge, their spiritual realization saves us many years of struggle or wrong decisions or this or that. Those who act without knowledge become enamored by opulence and enjoyment and follow only the portions of the Vedas that grant material boons. So if we follow materialistic religion or materialistic philosophies or materialistic scriptures, then we become enamored by this opulence. Such persons never develop steadiness or determination. We are good as our direction. If we have bad direction, how can we make spiritual progress? Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction, he writes that the spiritual master can be even a Madhyam Adhikari or a Kanishta Adhikari. But he says one should be very careful in accepting a spiritual master who is not an Uttam Adhikari, but is a Madhyam or a Kanishta Adhikari, because if one does so, one has the risk of going down the wrong path. Because if their guidance is not clear or not good, they are a spiritual master, but their guidance may not be fully Krishna conscious. And that's why even if we have sort of less association, it may be even more beneficial to have someone who is more in touch with Krishna than someone who is not. At the same time, if that person is repeating Prabhupada's instructions faithfully, and they're not an Uttamadhikari, but they're repeating as it is, then they can give very good spiritual guidance because they are simply repeating the words of the great souls and guiding us based upon the words of Srila Prabhupada, right? So the same thing is true of the Vedas and the scriptures. There's scriptures that are in the mode of goodness, scriptures in the mode of passion, or for those in the mode of passion, and scriptures for those in the mode of ignorance, and scriptures who are for those following the transcendental path. If we read a scripture that's for those in the mode of passion or ignorance, like there are Manusmriti, the Daivi Bhagavat, the Shiva Puran. These are very nice scriptures, but they're for people who are in the modes of passion and ignorance who want temporary material benefits. So they teach us how to worship the demigods. If we follow those parts of the Vedas, we don't get much benefit. But if we follow the Srimad Bhagavatam, which starts out clarifying, establishing that this is the Amala Puran, that this is established for those who are Paramahansas, who are on the path of spiritual advancement, such a scripture will lead us to perfection. Such a scripture will make us rise to the platform of spiritual realization. Right, Bhagavatam starts with that dharma projita kaitava, that the Bhagavatam rejects all materialistic religions. It rejects materialistic philosophies. It puts us on the spiritual level. So this is why the emphasis on Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because people say, oh, well, this scripture says it's okay, or this scripture says that Shiva is a supreme personality of Godhead, is the ultimate. But who is that scripture written for? In order to convince them to do something, they have to convince, oh, this is the ultimate thing. Otherwise, they won't take it up, right? So that's why these scriptures may speak like that, but they're not prescribed for those who are interested in the highest destination. So now Krishna further describes what is Buddhi Yoga. What does it mean to practice Buddhi Yoga? Buddhi Yoga is actually the first form of yoga that Krishna speaks of in the Gita. The next chapter he talks about Karma Yoga, and the next chapter is Jnana Yoga. Then next chapter again it's Karma Yoga. Then he talks about Dhyana Yoga. But in this chapter he's talking about Buddhi Yoga. And it's very significant that this comes first, because in order to do anything, in order to follow a path, one has to first know what is the right path. Right? One has to fix one's intelligence. So it starts with the buddhi. The buddhi must control the mind. Okay, no, I'm not going to go to the bar. Okay, I'm not going to watch this movie. I'm going to take that time and I'm going to study something about Krishna. I'm going to take that time and use it in spiritual life. When that determination comes, then we can do the further activities, right? Acting out of duty only without personal attachment is yoga. Text 47 to 48. This yoga keeps all sinful reactions far away and will purify even previous sins, thereby granting liberation. So Prabhupada describes then in the purpose that Buddhi Yoga is Bhakti Yoga, which is also Karma Yoga. All of these yogas, as we advance, they merge together in Bhakti Yoga. So acting only out of duty is also Karma Yoga, but it's also Buddhi Yoga, because that's when our intelligence is properly engaged, that's what happens. So this yoga keeps all sinful reactions away, because though we're acting, we're not acting for ourselves. So there's no bad karma. We are acting for Krishna. And it will even purify previous sins, thereby granting liberation. Just act for Krishna. However, to engage in such detached, dutiful activity, one must become disinterested in all hopes of sense gratification, typically promised in the Vedic Karma Kanda. So, Prabhupada says that material progress and spiritual progress, no, not progress. He says that the material desires, sinful activities, and spiritual progress don't go together, right? They don't go well together. So in order to make spiritual advancement, we also need to give up material desires that we cannot engage in Krishna service. And these are often promised in the Vedic Karma Kanda that, okay, if you kill the goat, offer it for sacrifice, then you will get this benediction or that benediction. These are Vedic sacrifices in the Vedic Karma Kanda, but they are for sense gratification. They are not for spiritual advancement. And even in those sections, it will be very clearly written. It will be they will warn us, just like in this goat sacrifice. The text, they have this mantra that the person doing the goat sacrifice must recite in the ear of the goat. And what is the meaning of that mantra? The mantra that they recite is, in this life, I am cutting your throat. In the next life, you will cut my throat. This is the actual meaning of the mantra that is said when they do this whole sacrifice. And the idea is that this level of, this platform of people, they will eat meat because they're attached to it. They will do it anyway. But by doing it in this way, and every day or every week when they're doing this, by saying in the ear of the goat, today I'm cutting your throat, tomorrow you will cut my throat, one day it will register in that person's mind that, why am I doing this? How many throats do I want to get cut? Why am I killing this goat? So it's not that people say, oh, see, the Vedas are encouraging animal slaughter. But no, it's not that they want us to do it, but rather the Vedic Karmakanda is trying to regulate it and trying to help that person advance in spiritual life. Same thing, as I mentioned, with demigod worship. It's not that they want us to worship the demigods, but they say, look, these people want material things. So at least if they worship a devotee of the Lord, which is a demigod, for that material thing, they will make spiritual advancement. And this is actually the process of preaching Krishna consciousness, that we find various people on different levels. And our challenge is, how can we engage them somehow so they can make spiritual advancement? How can we somehow or the other engage them in some service? Krishna says right in the Gita that the intelligent does not disturb their minds, but rather engages them in Krishna consciousness in some service. Being thus fixed, one achieves samadhi. So by practicing buddhi yoga and becoming disinterested in Vedic or materialistic karma kanda, one becomes fully Krishna conscious. So now we've done avideya, and now the final section is prayojana. So after Krishna describes how to practice buddhi yoga and how this buddhi yoga leads one to becoming fixed and achieving samadhi, Arjuna wants to know what state of being does one attain when one attains this state of samadhi. So he wants to know, those who have attained samadhi, what are their general symptoms? How does he speak? How does he sit or restrain himself? How does he walk or engage in activity? So the questions are, what are his general symptoms? How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? And our acharyas, Prabhupada, they explain that by sitting, he means restraining. By walking, he means engaging. So, what are the characteristics of a person who has realized and become fixed in Buddhi Yoga? So, Arjuna is a very intelligent student because he is so much in distress right now. And he wants to know that, okay, Krishna, if I follow this path of Buddhi Yoga and I realize the difference between the body and the soul, I get the Sambandha and the Abhideya, then will this knowledge and practice, will it relieve me of my problem? See, there's many nice philosophies out there and there's many nice teachers out there, and they all have something to offer. But Prabhupada says the test of the pudding is in its taste. The test is, fine, the philosophy is very good, but does it actually free one from their material conditioning? Does it actually free us from our problems? Right? This is why Prabhupada is so special and this movement is so special. There's so much nice philosophy in other places also. But but the question is, who has relieved people of their material conditioning? Like who actually, which philosophy actually changed people's lives? People came and went. So many gurus came to America, they gave famous speeches, they came and went. But the fact is, no one was able to change the lives of the Americans and the Russians and the Africans and the Indians. So Prabhupada is able to do it. And that's why we know that his teaching and philosophy is pure. We don't say that others are necessarily not pure, but that's why this is pure. What are his general symptoms? Because this is in Eastern philosophy, this is called path philosophy. That a philosophy is only a philosophy if if the path leads to the goal, if it leads one on a path of perfection. So he's asking that question because he wants to know, will this knowledge relieve me of my problem? Otherwise, there's no point. He's not an armchair philosopher. And secondly, he wants to, for the benefit of all of us, wants to Krishna to tell us who has this knowledge. How do we know who has this knowledge? Because we cannot go in people's minds and hearts. We can only judge them by their symptoms. So he tells Krishna, please let me know what are the symptoms of these people so that I can identify them, so we can know who is a self-realized soul, who can be a teacher, who can be my guide. Symptoms of one in Buddhi Yoga. The general symptom of a self-realized soul. He renounces all desires for sense gratification and enjoys pleasure within himself. So Krishna's first answer is, his very first point is that such a person should has renounced desires for sense gratification. Right? The effort to chase after material happiness that takes so much time. The effort to become materially prosperous or successful, which we can do for Krishna, but if we're honest, we're doing it a lot for ourselves. So this doesn't happen overnight, nor does it need to, but this is a symptom of a self-realized soul, that we renounce desires for sense gratification, knowing that Krishna says later on, they have a beginning and an end and are simply sources of misery. One time, someone came to Srila Prabhupada, a great businessman came to Srila Prabhupada. And when he came to meet him, then he began describing all the factories that he has, all the industries that he has. You know, the good businessmen, they generally have like 5 or 6 companies, not just one company, 5 or 6 companies that they're managing. He said, you know, I have a factory here, and I have one in Malaysia, and I have, one in India, and then I have, 5,000 workers in each of these factories, and then I have also an online business, an e-commerce business, and I have, well, maybe not online because there was no online business at that time, but he was describing all the different aspects of his business and the houses that he had. And then Prabhupada responded to him. He said, that is all very nice. This is your punishment. All of this is your punishment. Because it's a headache. Prabhupada was self-realized. He could see that, wow, so many factories. He was, and then later on, that man goes and tells Prabhupada how he had difficulty sleeping at night. He could not sleep. So, first quality is that a self-realized soul renounces desires for sense gratification and enjoys the highest pleasure, which is the pleasure found within oneself. We see this beautiful image here, so nice. This is the perfection of life. How he speaks, he neither praises nor condemns the duality of mundane good and evil. This is called Gramya Katha. We spend so much time. This person is bad. This person is good. And this is probably what they're thinking. And this is what they were thinking about what they were thinking. And this is what will get them going or get them irritated. So let's do this. No, they don't engage in this Gramya Katha, the duality of mundane existence. They see the big picture always. This is all just, like Queen Kunti says, social interaction. It is due to friction that is caused by social interaction. Whenever there's something, there'll always be some conflict. And everyone engaging in that conflict is in ignorance, because it's all just the material world. It's all temporary, and we're not interested in it. We're fundamentally not interested in it. We may do our duty because it's our duty to do the right thing and trying to expand the Krishna conscious movement, trying to serve Krishna. But the essence should not be lost. And our duty, or that is ours, these things, in the name of duty, should not overwhelm our Krishna consciousness. Right? The fundamental thing is that the hearing and chanting goes on, the service goes on, and all of this is less important. How does he sit? You see a lot of images here of tortoises, so there must be some connection there. He can perfectly withdraw his senses. So remember, sits, it must mean how does he restrain himself, because the way Krishna answers it is he tells how a devotee restrains themselves. He can perfectly withdraw his senses from the sense objects because he has a higher taste of spiritual bliss gained by focusing the mind on Krishna. So I've experienced sometimes, even in our spiritual life, in our service, this is not our material thing, but something disturbing happens, or someone cheats us, or something happens. But if we are focused on Krishna, then we can withdraw our senses and still stay in our Krishna conscious mindset. We can taste spiritual bliss. But if it's mixed devotional service and our minds are still very much involved in the material thing, then that will disturb us a lot. So Krishna is telling us that we should aspire for the higher taste of spiritual bliss. And then we can focus our mind on Krishna. And these little things will not hopefully bother us too much. Just like one time something was bothering me. So I asked one very nice senior devotee, and the first advice that they gave is, don't let it bother your mind too much. Don't let it bother your mind too much. So that advice didn't solve the problem, but it solved my problem, right? So our problem is actually not the problem. Our problem is the effect that it has on our mind. It disturbs our mind. It annoys our mind. So by giving up that attachment to the outcome, our mind becomes peaceful. By giving that attachment to Krishna, that what I want is Krishna, then we become peaceful. This may mean taking care of things, because in our level, if we artificially try to just ignore things, it sometimes doesn't work. But at least to a certain degree, we can make it work. But okay, yes, I need to take care of this, and yes, it will bother my mind, but don't let it bother your mind too much. Okay, there's worse things that happen in this world. I could have been in Gaza and my house could have been bombed and I could have been, on the street without food. But all of that by Krishna's grace is not there. Krishna has given me so much mercy. So now let me focus my mind on Krishna and and gradually we'll work on this problem. But I shouldn't get affected by it. There's no other effective means to control the senses. If not fixed on Krishna, the mind fixates on sense objects and thus inevitably drags one into illusion. Just yesterday, we were talking with one devotee, and they're saying that my mind fixates. It just like keeps getting disturbed, really disturbed by something. So if we fixate it, we can all relate with this word fixate. The mind, it keeps, going in circles. We all know that, right? We're chanting our japa, and it's uh, out of 1 hour and 30 minutes, 1 hour and 20 minutes while we're chanting our japa, we're thinking of the same thing. If that happens to you, be assured you're not alone. So the mind tends to fixate on sense objects because it is not fixed on Krishna. And it inevitably drags one into illusion. So we must do whatever it takes to protect the mind from fixating on other things rather than Krishna. And sometimes that means just, you know, uh, keeping the mind away, physically away from the material thing that is mind is fixating us on, like the phone, right? Sometimes just helps having the phone in the other room, or it may be a negative situation. Staying away from that physically is helpful so that we can fix the mind on Krishna, because that's the goal, right? In chapter 12, Krishna tells us that the highest goal is having your mind fixed on Krishna. One who's attained that has attained everything else. And then he says, if you're not able to do that, which is our situation, if you're not able to do that, then do this. Then do the regulated practices of bhakti, because then that helps us come to the point of fixing our mind on Krishna. And thus our regulated practices of bhakti. Because without that, we cannot come to the stage of constant remembrance about Krishna. And one time, it actually occurred to me, it actually like a realization came that the whole thing is about um, mind control, is about not thinking about those things which are not worthy to think about, that we're not supposed to think about. So if there's a material desire or something that's bothering us, we have to stop thinking about it and keep the mind always focused on Krishna. Don't even let the mind think about it for 1 second. Right? This is what very many ascetic traditions do. And you think, oh, it's so artificial, but it's not artificial. It's actually the means of mind control. Like in the Swaminarayan tradition, at least they used to be. I'm not sure if it's that much even to this day, but they would. I had a Swaminarayan sadhu friend in England. He was also a student studying there, doing his PhD. So their strict rule was that they would not even see women. They would not see any woman. They're so strict in it that if they see a woman coming, they will turn around and walk backwards. And it's a bit extreme. But what is the idea? I mean, it is extreme because this way you may think about women too much. But the idea generally is that if we don't think about something, then it bothers us for 1 second, but then after that, it doesn't bother us. So he explained to me that we have this not because women are less but we do this for our protection. Because our mind is a monkey mind. Our mind wants to go everywhere. Then if we focus it on Krishna, then it is always Krishna conscious. Just like it's described that why Haridas Thakur was Haridas Thakur and he could chant so many rounds, because he had the potency, the capability of always thinking about Krishna continuously for every moment throughout the day. So try this with your mind. See how many minutes in the day are you actually thinking of Krishna? And then we can know how much work we have left. So a day has 24 hours. In that, was I thinking of Krishna 15 minutes? Thinking of Krishna we can do at any point, right? We can be driving and we just think of this, or we think of Krishna. How many minutes were we actually focused on Krishna? Or if something wrong is disturbing us and we know this is not good for me, it's a material desire, it's going to pull me down, then practice not thinking of it. Just focus your mind immediately on Krishna. Don't let your mind, you see your mind going there, don't let it go there. Because that is dhyato visha punsa sangastyeshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodot vijayate. It all starts with contemplating the objects of the senses. Dhyato. That is the beginning of fall down. And that is the beginning of liberation also. Dhyato vishyan. What we contemplate, whatever is the object of our contemplation, that is the direction we go in. So like a tortoise, we have to contemplate our mind on Krishna. Keep it focused there no matter what happens. Also in our spiritual life, we'll notice that we go up and down, right? We get really fixed in something, we get really inspired. And then all of a sudden we lose it. And we're like, well, where did I developed this spiritual, mood and state, where did it go? It disappears because something happens, right? Something happens in our life and it shakes everything up. And we're not able to continue the contemplation. So if we recognize this pattern and we say, no, whatever happens, I'm still going to contemplate my mind on Krishna, then we start to become fixed, then unwavering in our devotion to Krishna. So we said we got the symptom. So symptom does not desire sense gratification, and it does not hover on the platform of duality. This is a big theme in the Bhagavad Gita. Imagine how important it is. Krishna mentions two things, and one of those two things is not to praise or condemn, good or bad, friends or enemies. All these things should be given up. Then this is how he sits. Restrained senses focusing on Krishna. And on this point, it's also said that Gita is saying that one actively has to try to control the senses. Many people say that, well, no, just let you or someone else do what they want to do, because if they do that, then they themselves will come to Krishna and don't apply any restriction. But that's not Krishna's process. We have to strive. We have to make an effort to control the senses. One must try to control the mind and senses. He says this many times in the Gita. Conscientiously, one has to do it. Though one doesn't like it, though one doesn't feel like it, one still controls the mind and senses. Some people say you should only chant if you feel like it. If it's coming from inside and you're feeling it, then you should do it. But that's not Krishna's process. We make an effort to do it. We focus on it, and then we feel like it, because the buddhi is driving it. That's why it starts with buddhi, with intelligence. We do it based on the intelligence. It's good for me, and that's why I'm doing it. And when we do it that way, then we start to feel like it. How he walks. When engaging his senses, he does so with regulation and religious principle. Thus, his senses become satisfied and his mind becomes peaceful. So now, what is the positive engagement? One restrains one's senses, but then one engages one's senses with regulation in that which is beneficial, in the religious principles. One wakes up early in the morning, one chants the holy name, one does service. Thus his senses become satisfied and his mind becomes peaceful. Krishna consciousness is actually so nice, right? It's actually the only way out. It's the only way to become satisfied and peaceful. And that's why we shouldn't make ourselves too agitated. We finally found the way out. Now we should do everything is there. Prabhupada said, I'm giving you the spiritual world, right? So we should do what is good for us, for our spiritual advancement. Not that we come out of the material anxiety and then we come in spiritual life and then we bring our material consciousness in the spiritual life and we enter the material consciousness again. Without such regulated engagement, agitated senses, without regulating, search for satisfaction in sense objects. Agitated senses, search for satisfaction in sense objects, thus dragging the devotee into illusion. So one then may feel, well, okay, so the way out is I give up all my services and I sit in some holy place and I just chant. But no, the way out is regulated engagement. Our mind and senses will become purified when they're fully engaged in Krishna's service. It doesn't matter so much what service it is, but if it's engaged in Krishna's service, it will purify the heart. Just like we started this chapter with that, right? That by performing one's duty for Krishna, it not only brings it not only does it not bring sinful reactions, but it even burns up one's past sinful reactions. That's how powerful devotional service is. There's no karma sin for it, but it even burns up that which we had. And devotional service means performing all of our activities for Krishna. So by performing our duty for Krishna, it may be to raise our family, to do our job. If we do that for Krishna, that will burn up our past sinful activities rather than dragging us into illusion. And it's so simple, but to do that simple is so difficult because the mind keep wants to go into the place where it shouldn't go, like the sinful activities, the lust, anger, greed. But if one just leads a very Krishna conscious simple life, one gets liberation. But it's so hard to do that. Although the sensory engagements of a self-realized soul appear similar to the activities of materialists, they are as different as night and day. For unlike the common man, the actions of a buddhi yogi are not driven by desire or false ego. Today, we are observing the Vyas Puja of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. And I was thinking just when I read this, he came to mind that how if you see his activities, it seems just like any other person's activities, right? He speaks, he travels, he does all these things. So externally, a self-realized soul, their activities may seem okay, they're okay, they've taken the path of being a mendicant, but it's not that different, right? What's so special about this person, about a devotee, a self-realized, surrendered devotee of the Lord? But what's different is externally, while the activities often seem to be normal, but the internal mindset, that is what is so different. The internal mindset is that it's free from desire or false ego. And that's such a small thing, but it's the hardest thing to do. If we give that up, then if someone is able to give that up, then that is self-realized soul. Then that same activity becomes so different. It is like night and day. It's totally, then one influences thousands of people, one becomes so happy and Krishna conscious, because when we get that when we get that Krishna conscious stage, then it's hard, even in that Krishna conscious stage, to give up our material desires, to give that false ego. But if one can do that, then one is a self-realized soul. And doing that is a whole process of bhakti yoga, of buddhi yoga. One cannot do that artificially. Because as soon as one will get some influence, some power, one will be driven to utilize it for one's own purpose. But if one has that power and influence and position, but one does not utilize it for one's own position, but for Krishna's service, then that person is acting in the same way, but they're acting on a different level. And they become very spiritually advanced. And that's, very relevant because we're discussing the symptoms of one in Buddhi Yoga. And that's what we saw in Srila Prabhupada, right? Others were also very successful entrepreneurs. It's not very uncommon for a successful businessman to have more than 100 stores, right? Like people who have these restaurant chains, in 10, 15 years, they'll open 150 stores, 150, So one can say Prabhupada opened 100 temples, they opened, 150 stores. But what was the difference? That they open 150 stores, but every single store has to be for their enjoyment. The profit of that store has to come to them. But Srila Prabhupada could open 100 temples, and each temple was for Krishna. Each temple was simply to serve the devotees and Krishna and help those who are lost in this world. And when the devotees tried to give Prabhupada the credit or make Prabhupada into God, then he would actually kick them out of the movement. One time it happened, and say, "How can you say this?" And then they would come back in. But even if someone tried to give something for his personal ego, he would not accept it. So that is Buddhi Yoga. That is pure devotional service. And in the final verse, Krishna says, he tells the Prayojana, the ultimate goal, the ultimate perfection, the destination of such activity, of such practice, of such knowledge is one thus enters the kingdom of God. One thus situated enters into the kingdom of God, the spiritual world. So this is why chapter 2 is called the contents of the Gita summarized, because Krishna goes from the most basic knowledge of the soul to how do we develop our bhakti, buddhi yoga, how do we develop Krishna consciousness, how do we practice it, what are the qualities that we will attain as a result of this practice, and what is the final destination? Such a person, ourselves, others, enters into the kingdom of God. So Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, from beginning, the new person comes into the temple, we tell them about the body and the soul, the difference between them, all the way to going back home, back to Godhead. And the process of reaching there is described in this chapter. So therefore it is the contents of the Gita summarized. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, perfect timing. It's 8 o'clock, so we can take questions and comments now. Swati Mataji, Ashanti Rupa Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the beautiful class. So, Prabhu, I have couple of questions or a doubt. So, you were saying that we have to fix our mind when we get disturbed and all those things, right? On Krishna.
Yes.
So, keep avoiding the negative things, and you have to stay away physically, and do some regulative principles, and then do chanting, and then you can fix your mind. You can be peaceful. Is it not that a selfish act, Prabhu? Because it it is making me to think that okay, because we are in the Kali Yuga, right? You never know what you have done the mistake in that situation. So you are always thinking or a fault finding that the other person is bad, and then you are fixing your mind on Krishna. You are chanting, you are doing service. So
Yes.
how come you become tolerant and actually being humble and find your own fault and fix the situation and deal with the situation rather than always be devotees? Okay, now this
mm,
situation is bad, this person, I have a problem with this, so okay, let
mm,
me ignore, let me,
mm,
avoid because it is
mm,
affecting my spiritual practices, let me
mm,
go and chant more rounds, let me go and do more services. Is
mm.
it not that we are keep avoiding ourselves to deal with the situations and not finding what mistake
Yes.
we have done in it? And that is one question, Prabhu, and the other
So
one
I'll
is that,
answer this
yeah,
first one
yeah.
first and then we'll go to the next one. So yes, that's why Lord Chaitanya says that we cannot fix our mind on Krishna unless we are more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. And that what that means is offering respect to everyone,
Hmm.
offering respect to everyone and not accepting in return. Offering respect to everyone means that we we deal with them nicely and we resolve them, right? How can I offer respect to you if I'm not willing to even engage with you so that there's a good relationship? Right? Let's say if you want to talk to me and I don't talk to you, that's not offering respect to you, right? So so and then Lord Chaitanya says that only one who does this can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, right? So Lord Chaitanya is saying that this is needed in order to fix our mind, because otherwise artificially we try to fix our mind, but like you were saying, we do offenses on the side or we're not acting in a respectful way to others, our mind will get agitated. We won't be able to do it. We can't do it artificially. At the same time, we should also be convinced in our heart that the problems of this world will never be solved, right? So while we don't, the requirement is we should not, we cannot, we don't go and offend others. But in spite of that, in spite of us not offending others, people will put false accusations on us. They will offend us. They will cause some conflict because the demons want conflict. Right? The demoniac nature wants conflict. So things are peaceful, but someone has to bring conflict. So we should be assured that in this material world, we will not find a situation where everything is solved. And so, therefore, Krishna here is saying one has to restrain the senses, right? Like the tortoise, pull those senses back. Because just trying to solve, our life will go away in solving, and we will miss the opportunity. So we must not do anything wrong, and we must do our duty in trying to do what is right. But then also realize the nature of this material world, that I also have to go internal. I have to see how do I make spiritual advancements so I can solve these problems from a different level, not on the material level, not for a tit for tat level, but on a level of spiritual perspective. And from that level, people can see the difference, that this person is coming from a different platform, right? They're not coming on a mature platform. Just like when we see advanced souls, they're also dealing with problems, but when they deal with it, it's it's not on the material thing. It's on a different level. So we have to also do the internal work. Then it works. Yes.
So, Prabhu, you mean like we fix our mind on Krishna so that we get that clarity how to deal with the situation? That's what you mean, right? It's not
Yes.
that we escape from the situation or the person who is having a problem with us, because we never find a fault within us, right? It's
Mm,
always like we always feel, oh, this
mm,
person has done this. Oh,
mm,
because of this person, I'm feeling like this. It's always the other person, right?
mm.
See,
Right.
it's not even devotees. If you see any person, like when I see lots of quotations, people post on everywhere, say about toxic people, stay away from them, stay away from them. So who is that person? So everyone
Mm.
posts, everyone thinks that they are nice, right? No one
Everyone thinks
thinks
the other person is toxic, and they'll say,
toxic,
"Stay
right?
away from
How
that
can,
person."
yeah, maybe we are toxic too, right? For
Yes.
others, like we never know what kind of a toxicity we are carrying.
Right.
So it is really hard, to fix the mind on Krishna when,
Mm.
but yeah, what you said is right. Like, when we fix the mind on Krishna, we might get a clarity and may
Yes.
find the faults within us to
Mm.
become as humble as blade of a grass, so that we can go back and deal with the situation instead
Mm.
of escaping from the situation. That is one
Yes.
thing, Prabhu. The other thing is like, what if these situations comes from a sincere devotee or a senior most devotee, because we see Krishna, we see devotees, similar to Krishna, right?
Mm,
We always, if someone other people does anything, we are it's easy for us to come out of it. But if it is
mm,
a devotee, you know
mm,
that devotees are very pure, very sincere, very senior most. And then if you get that kind of a situation with a devotee, it's really challenging to fix the mind on Krishna. So how do we
mm.
take this?
Yeah, but we have to ask, why are we seeing so many faults? You see, so it's, and again, that goes where our attention is, right? If our attention is, I want to focus my service, my life on Krishna, then we'll understand that other people have faults, but I don't need to notice them so much, right? It's not my duty to fix all the faults, right? So yes, if it is my duty, I'll deal with it, right? Let's say I'm a, temple president or something, and it's my duty to deal with some problems. But even there, we can get too engaged. So, so it's that, the pure devotee, the devotees are such geniuses, right? That's that balance. We need that balance of doing our duty, but not being attached, leaving things ultimately up to Krishna. So getting too much also um, uh,
Mhm.
observant or involved
Mm.
will also be
Steps.
unnecessary.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yes. But thank you for a nice point. Yes. Prabhupada says not Prabhupada, someone, advanced devotee, his disciple, someone says that the only way out is through, right? The way out is the way through. So escapism is not an option. We don't escape, but at the same time, we don't we don't put more headache than needed on our heads. Because the devotee takes a humble approach in every situation. And even you see in the material life, successful corporate leaders, all these things, they're like that. They don't get into too much of the small things. They keep the big picture in mind. And a devotee, this is their quality. They're always keeping, like, what is the big picture in mind? I may solve this problem and I may spend a year solving it, but will it help me or the other person? If I spend so much time, will I gain the ultimate goal, which is reaching Krishna? So yes, thank you. Okay, Lavanya Mataji, you're next, I believe.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
Prabhupada, you were telling, right, that, in Shiva Puran, it says that, Lord Shiva is the supreme personality of Godhead.
Hmm.
Does it say like that, Prabhu?
Yes, in the Shiva
Oh,
Puran,
okay.
there's many passages where it says that the ultimate supreme person is Lord Shiva. So then people come and say, but it says in the Shiva Puran, you'll find the Shaivites, they quote Shiva Puran left and right. They say, it
Mm.
says here, Shiva is the source of all incarnations. And, yeah, it says it.
Okay, but Shiva is not worshipped as impersonal form, right? He is also worshipped. My question is, is he in a worshipped as an impersonal form
Hmm.
or in a personal form?
So
And
most,
also,
yeah, yes.
the follow-up would be Prabhu. So, if they believe that Lord Shiva is a supreme personality of Godhead,
Hmm.
so why is it that they cannot accept that in Vaishnava's philosophy,
Hmm.
Krishna becomes a supreme personality of Godhead, and
Hmm.
also even while worshipping Shiva
Hmm.
and other demigods, actually the Sankalpam starts with Sri Mahavishnu Ragnaya, and
Hmm.
in any puja we perform, the
Hmm.
achaman is always on Om Keshavaya Namaha, Om Narayana Namaha. It's not that we are worshipping Shiva, we are not taking his names.
Hmm.
So why is it that they cannot accept that maybe Shiva is only a form of Krishna, like avatar of Krishna, Guna
Hmm.
avatar?
Hmm. So,
And the regulations mentioned in Shiva Puran are being followed. But when
yes.
we say that, these are the four regulative principles which we are following for Vaishnava philosophy, they
Hmm.
actually, fail to accept that,
Yes.
they feel that they are in disbelief, how can you say that, if you have this, you cannot worship?
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
So
please.
most of the Prabhupada actually says this. One place in Chaitanya Charitamrita he says is that most of the worshippers of Lord Shiva are Mayavadis, unfortunately. Though you don't have to, like you are saying. But you see, like even Shankaracharya, his followers, they were Mayavadis, like the core Mayavadis. Like they're like the big names in Mayavad, and they're all Shaiva worshippers. They worship Shiva. Shankaracharya, right there, Shankara, his name has Lord Shiva's name in it. So Lord Shiva's quality is that he uplifts those who are most in any, he uplifts everyone, even those who are in the lower modes of nature. So he's sort of tricking people, right? That those who are attracted by impersonalism, which, as we have discussed, is, a form of ignorance, great form of ignorance. At least they're coming to Lord Shiva, so they're making some spiritual advancement, right?
Okay.
Those who are, ghosts and goblins, or those who are anything, they are then at least worshiping Lord Shiva. Even Ravana, he's following Lord Shiva. By his devotion to Shiva, he's making some spiritual advancement. And those who are very spiritually advanced also, they're also worshiping Shiva. They're making spiritual advancement. So everyone is making spiritual advancement, but the degree of their advancement is based upon how they are approaching him. Just like, we were talking yesterday also, right? The demigods, the gopis are also going to the demigods, but they're going to Krishna saying, "Oh Krishna, please." Oh, sorry, they're going to the demigod Katyayani, which is Durga Devi. "Please make Krishna my husband." And others are going to Devi and saying, "Please, give me, an ocean of wealth." So it's what is the approach, the motivation they're approaching, that is what makes the difference. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And about the regulative principle, following, regulations for Shiva worship is okay, but not, when they say that, we have to follow certain, that, no intoxication, no coffee or tea, or no onion garlic. Actually, they find a fault with this kind of approach. Because when they can
Yes.
follow the regulative principles for Shiva worship, why can't it be, they cannot be so open to this thought process that we are actually trying to be more pure in our service.
Yes. So that is the problem. And Prabhupada says that, they're sometimes taking some drug. And Prabhupada says that Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison. He did not take ganja. And he says that these people, they take these drugs because they say, see, Shiva also drinks poison. So therefore, we are also taking poison in the form of drugs. The Prabhupada says, no, you cannot take one drop. You have to drink the whole ocean of poison if you want to imitate Lord Shiva.
Yes.
So this is just the shortcut mentality, right? What to speak of Shiva worshippers, even in our own movement, we have people who say, okay, you can be a devotee and, you can do what you want. Just chant Hare Krishna and you don't have to follow the regulated principles. There's big, they're called sahajas. In Lord Chaitanya, the acharyas, they stopped them. So sahaja doesn't mean necessarily someone who dresses up like a gopi. Sahaja means anyone who wants to practice spiritual life without trying to follow the regulated principles, which basically means taking something very exalted and making it cheap, right? When we want the shortcut, and we especially have this shortcut people have when we join Krishna consciousness in the beginning. We feel that, I can find a shortcut where in 1 year I can become a pure devotee. It's called PSD. PSD. It's called pure devotee. PDS, pure devotee pure devotee syndrome. PDS. So it's a PDS where I feel, I know it all now. It's so there, it's so clear. And then after 2 years, we realize, oh my gosh, I don't know everything, because this the material desires pop up, and we realize our kind of how it's not easy to be the pure devotee. So that is there in the Shaiva tradition also, that they are, they want to become Shiva overnight. That, oh, Shiva's there, he's meditating, he's a naked, ascetic. So I can also be like that. I can take ganja and transcend this world. But that is the shortcut mentality. That is not Shiva worship. That is Shiva imitation, right? They're trying to imitate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Nice points, nice question. Andesh Prabhu,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, just like you were talking about artificial way of controlling the mind, I was thinking about artificial way of engaging everything in the service of Krishna
Mm.
just to satisfy one's own desire. It's like I'll give you my example. Like sometimes I have these desires that I want to buy this, I want to buy this. Then I cannot suppress these desires because then they become an agitation. So I'm
Mm.
like, I'm gonna use it for the service of Krishna
Mm.
instead. So I feel like sometimes this is a cheating process to like get rid of your desires and kind of using the philosophy in a wrong way. So just wanted to see if this is still okay in the initial stages and there's still a benefit for it,
Mm.
or just say straight up cheating.
Yes, no, it's the process is that that the desires that are not going away, we engage them in Krishna's service. So some desires we must give up, right? Like the desire to eat meat, one has to give that up. But the desire to, let's say, have, you know, I don't know, I'm just thinking, have a nice car, right? One person had a desire to have a very nice car. He wanted something like a Lexus, a Cadillac, something very expensive. And so somehow, that was a desire that was hard to give up. And so that person, he lives in Los Angeles. Every year he brings his car to take Lord Jagannath to the Rath Yatra. So that's a way of engaging it in Krishna's service. That still doesn't make that desire pure devotional service because it's his own desire. And this is something we cover very soon in the Bhagavad Gita, Nishkam Karma Yoga versus Sakam Karma Yoga. That it's still his own desire. But by dovetailing it in Krishna's service, one is on the path to purifying it. One can gradually purify it. One can gradually purify those desires. And that is actually the only way forward because those desires don't vanish. But by engaging them, regulating them, and regulating and then engaging them in Krishna's service, we do that. Another example, the most common one probably, is um, the desire to for lust, right? And that Krishna tells in Arjuna that if you procreate for producing Krishna conscious children, then he says, I am that, right? He says that can be engaged in Krishna's service and in that way purified. Of course, it's not pure devotional service because then initially it's not, because we can just give up that desire. But by engaging in Krishna's service, we become purified and it can become pure devotional service eventually. Right? So, yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, I had another question. So, like in Bhagavatam, we read about all these great personalities like Bali Maharaj surrendering everything at once to Krishna. So, how can we follow these personalities? Like, I know we cannot mimic them exactly. So, how do we not? How can we not mimic them, but like gradually follow on their footsteps? Because like when we read about it, we're like, okay, we can do it, but we can do similar things to them, but like it is really impossible to be like them. So how can we gradually get there and follow their footsteps and not mimic them?
Yes, very nice question. So Prabhupada gave us the process, right? How do we do that? Prabhupada gave us the process. We wake up every morning for Mangalartik. We chant our rounds. We perform devotional service. We read his books. We distribute his books. We associate with devotees. That is the process of surrender. That is the process of surrender. So surrender is not a singular act. It could be if someone is in that situation. Krishna's there, Arjuna's there. Krishna says, "Give your life for me." If we can do it, maybe that's surrender. But for most of us, surrender is not a singular act. Surrender is the choice and how we lead our life. That's surrender is walking the talk. right? That this is how I want to lead my life in service to Krishna. And that is surrendering to his, to the lifestyle that Krishna wants us to have, the spiritual lifestyle. So yeah, so that's, and then the process moves us forward.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Nice questions. I think Salja Mataji, you were next, yes? Or no, Rupal.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.
Prabhu, so the first chapter, I understand that there are six aggressors, and Arjuna had, six reasons, I think,
Mm,
to not to fight, and then the conch thing, and then it moves to basically at the end he ask Krishna, take my this rath to the middle of the war, and then he gives up. He puts his Gandhi and sits there. And
mm,
chapter number 2, I understand that it starts from 2.7 Karpanedo. So he says, I don't understand, I surrender. And then can you help me to connect chapter number 2? What he says, like one point I understand is and don't do Gramya Panchat, and don't give in to your senses, because Arjuna gave
mm,
in his senses. Don't give it to your senses, focus on the higher goal,
mm,
like put Krishna in between. So could you help
mm,
me to connect chapter number 2? It's very big chapter.
mm. We connect chapter number 2 with what points in chapter 1? His weakness of heart. And what else you said? I forgot.
He had a lot of compassion, and he was thinking
Yes,
he's doing
yes,
sinful activities, and there will
right,
be destruction in the
right,
family and indecision. The biggest one is he was not able to be decisive.
right.
Uh,
Yes, so at the beginning of this discussion, last class in the beginning, I think mentioned, I pointed out where in each section of chapter 2, Krishna is answering each of the 5 arguments that Arjuna puts forward. So, in this section, he talks about compassion. Krishna is answering that no, real compassion means compassion for the soul. Then, as far as indecision goes, by accepting Krishna as a spiritual master, the indecision is gone. Right?
mm,
The indecision is gone. So, so uh, uh, the indecision is gone because the spiritual master is giving the clear direction. So that problem is not there. Krishna is telling, based with your buddhi, also buddhi yoga, based on your using your buddhi, if you engage that in Krishna's service, the indecision will go, the intelligence will be fixed. Now, in terms of the other things, Krishna one by one answers it, just like he tells, we were just covering that, the verses towards the end, where he was saying that you're thinking that by leaving this battle, you will be happy, but actually, this will only bring you more misery. So, why is Krishna talking about happiness? As someone pointed out, it seems that's a little selfish. But no, he's talking about happiness because Arjuna raised the uh, the question of happiness. He's saying, look, this won't bring me any happiness. And Krishna is responding to that challenge that no, this will bring you happiness. This is actually by fighting in this battle, you will feel happy. Not if you, yeah, this is text 31 to 37.
yeah,
Arjuna
yeah.
argued that the war would bring him unhappiness. Here, Krishna shows that abandoning the war would bring unhappiness by creating an infamous stain on Arjuna's reputation. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. So yeah, he will become Akirti, and even if he dies, he'll get moksha, and if he fights, then also it is beneficial.
Mm.
And sinful, he says, I already killed them. They're
Mm.
already dead, and their bodies are like they, but their soul is alive. That what he says. How about for the family destruction? Does he say anything in this chapter number 2, like family about you know?
Family destruction. Okay, so that one. Yeah, that's a good one. Which one does he talk about? Family traditions, right? One is the argument was the traditions.
Yeah,
He talks about how,
un- unwanted progeny. It says in chapter number
Mhm.
1.
Yes. Mm. Where does he address that? Mm. Yeah, so one place that he does address it is when he talks about karma kanda and the Vedic karma kanda. He's saying that that act in buddhi yoga, don't be carried away by the Vedic karma kanda. So generally, when one is referring to family traditions, it's referring to the sacrifices, especially at Arjuna's time, the sacrifices, the various rituals and things that a person follows. So Krishna is saying, yes, that is there, but there's something higher, and that is acting for Krishna, and that is buddhi yoga or bhakti yoga. So family traditions, in terms of the these traditions are very good because they keep people in the mode of goodness, right? They raise one to the mode of goodness gradually. So for humanity at large, these family traditions, these festivals, like all the even the ritualistic ones are good because then at least people are on the level of piety, and that's why they are there. But while realizing and accepting that they're good, Krishna is saying that no, but there's also something higher, which is bhakti yoga. And by doing his duty, by establishing, when Yudhishthira Maharaj became king, and then Parikshit Maharaj, then the whole world was devotee. The Bhagavad Dharma was being spread. So by giving up the mundane ritualistic things, there's a loss, but a greater loss is if one gives up their Krishna consciousness. So that could be one response.
And Prabhu, just one last thing.
Mm.
I'll find out for the indecisive thing. One thing is this chapter also called Buddhi Yoga because the mind controls the senses. So
Yes.
Buddhi means mind, and then intelligence controls the mind, uh, and then maybe
Yes.
ego controls the intelligence. Is it right?
No,
Ego,
we control the intelligence.
we
The
control
soul,
the
yes, the
soul controls the
soul
intelligence.
has a choice of choosing the intelligence or choosing the mind. So the intelligence is always sharp. The intelligence is good, but the problem is we choose the mind rather than the intelligence. So
So
when someone drives by a bar, everyone knows, "Well, I shouldn't go in." That's the intelligence. But the mind says go in. So they choose the mind rather than the intelligence.
thank you, Prabhu. One last question:
Yes.
is the last one to go from all the desires? Is it true?
Oh. Um, um, Krishna does say it is lust only, Arjuna, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy in this world. So yes, that is in some ways the last to go, but the last to go is a false ego because it's the first to come, the ahankar. And the resting place of lust is the ahankar. It's a false conception that I am material. And that's why Krishna talks about it first, the difference between the body and the soul. So yes, lust is the biggest problem that we have, but the last to go is the false ego, the ahankar.
Prabhu, what was the reference for the lust you mentioned? Yes.
Yes, you can look this up. Uh, the translation is it is lust only, Arjuna, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy in this world.
In chapter 2.
No, it's not in chapter 2. I think it's chapter 4. Maybe I cannot remember.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll find it out. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavad
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you. So it's 8:30. We should end here. Maybe very quick things. Salja Mataji and then Rashmi Mataji, you can say. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much. I want to just a heads up. I have a bad wireless connection, so if I go off, please bear with me.
No problem.
The question I have is around actually what you were discussing with Rupal Mataji,
Mm,
but 2.33.
mm,
Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna to fight, right?
mm,
And he says that if, however, you do not perform your duty, religious duty, then you will incur sins, neglecting duties, and lose your reputation as a fighter. I
yes.
think I'm good there.
Mm,
Then he says, people will always speak of your infamy and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you left the battlefield out of fear only, and
mm,
thus consider you an insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could
mm,
be more painful for you? The
mm,
question I have, Prabhu, in this is, I'm actually wondering if this approach currently works, because I think we say that we should follow our heart and not let the outside influence us,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
Especially in Kali Yuga, because if we do that, then it'll be a real torture.
Mm.
Then our life would be a very different life, right?
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out this negotiation tactic by Krishna
Yes.
on, it doesn't, I don't know if it applies to us currently because it's probably not going to. I
Mm.
just wanted to get your thoughts on it because I
Yes.
don't think it works in current day and age, but that's my view. I would love to get yours.
Yes. So actually, what you're saying very brings up a very nice general point on the Gita, that very important when studying the Gita, that we recognize that Krishna and the Gita speaks on different levels at different times. So sometimes Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, do it as an offering to me. He's saying, whatever you're doing, just do that and do it as an offering to me. And other times he says, give up whatever you're doing and just surrender to me and do what I'm asking you to do. So people say very often that this is a contradiction. Krishna first is saying, you do what you want to do and you give the result to me. In a different place, he's saying, give up your work. And those who are not devotees, they will say, oh, it doesn't make sense. Krishna's contradicting themselves. But we understand, no, Krishna's speaking different instructions for people at different levels. He gives the first instruction for people who are newer on the path, and then he gives the highest instruction for those who are more advanced. So here also, Krishna's discussion on happiness needs to be seen in context of Arjuna's question and where he is at right now. He's still on the bodily level and he's measuring things in terms of happiness and distress. And like a friend, Krishna's utilizing different forms of logic to convince him to fight. He's saying, look, I know you're concerned about your happiness, which a devotee should not be. It's not pure devotional service. Our own material happiness, why should we be concerned about that? But Krishna is saying, even materially speaking, your material happiness won't come if you run away from the battlefield. He does this in another place. He says, even if you don't believe in the soul, still there's no reason to cry over your dead relatives, because if they're not a soul, then they're just a bag of chemicals anyway. Right? Now, why is he even saying that? Because that's not our philosophy. We are all souls. He should just say, no, but you are a soul. But again, Arjuna at this point is still on the bodily conception of life. So on that level, he's still trying to establish what is dharma. So even for those who are reading the Gita and they're on the bodily level and they're not willing to give up their bodily identification and come to the level of the soul, even they can benefit and at least do the right thing, do their duty. That at least, okay, on the basis of my duty as a warrior or as a mother or as a merchant, I need to do the right activities, and doing that duty protects them from doing the wrong thing.
Got it. Thank you very much. Love the way you explained it. Thank you. A lot of your explanations I love. So thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
This was on my mind, so it was very well resolved. So thank you very much. I didn't realize he's catering to different levels, which makes a lot of sense. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
Very
you.
well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Haribol. Thank you. Rashi Mataji, you have some final words?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I put my hand down because we were already so late, but I'll share a very short story, if I may, because you said it's
Yes.
Radhanath Swami Maharaj's Vyasa Puja,
Mm.
and it's very pertinent to one of the beautiful points you made today as to how we view others.
Mm.
So he says this beautiful story about the honeybee and the fly and how
Mm.
they teach different mindsets.
Mm.
And so he says that the honeybee, it'll go from flower to flower,
Mm.
and it'll extract the nectar without actually harming the flower.
Mm.
And so even in a place, in a beautiful garden, even if there is filth, it'll still go to the flower, and it'll seek the essence of each flower.
Mm.
And so that teaches us, how to focus, the art of focusing on the positives. Right? So we should become like the honeybee versus the fly, which even in a very clean place will actually go find the dirt and sit on it. Or even on our body, even if we have a healthy body, it'll actually find the scab, which is like infectious, and it'll sit on that. And so that's the mentality of focusing on the negatives.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, it just reminded me of this. He says it so much better, but it's a very beautiful story.
Yes. This is such a nice point, and it's actually a perfect concluding point, because it does bring it together that every situation, every person has positives and negatives, and the devotee chooses to focus more on the positives and less on the negatives. And that's the mindset, like you're saying, of the difference between the honeybee and the fly. And this is why they also say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Because it's also our vision of how we are seeing things. And that vision Krishna is trying to establish here in the Buddhi Yoga. He's saying that, fix your mind on me. I'm here for you. Fix it on the ultimate goal. Yes. Thank you. Wow, nice conclusion. Thank you, everyone. We will meet next week and do chapter 3. Thank you very much. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.